Hello, I am Anna Imagination of the Healing Garden. I recently had a perspective shift yesterday, and it really put a lot into view for me as far as how I look at certain emotions, how I manage and handle them, and where exactly I want to go with certain emotions. I am referring to an ongoing feeling of fear, feeling of basically how to cope with fear and social anxiety, what you perceive to be social anxiety when you are delving into the world of relationships and you're delving into the world of friendships. And this is something that for a while I always gaslit myself and said, "Oh, that's my mental illness. Oh, that's my social anxiety." And I found out very recently that it's not social anxiety, it's not trauma. What it was my alarm system going off, telling me, hey, this is a problem. These are not healthy people. This is a danger. And my wires were getting crossed because I was gaslighting myself. I was going, of course, you have that feeling. You have trauma. And I healed myself and I put myself in a position where I was healed. And then I stepped back and said, okay, I'm healed now. And then it would go off. And I'd go, I don't understand. I did the work. So I would do more work and it would go off. And I'm like, I just don't understand it. So basically, this last 10 days, yeah, this last 10 days, most of May, I have dedicated to releasing what no longer serves me and bringing into my life what actually fits. I'm literally in the middle of an upgrade. And it was during this upgrade, which is very normal at the tail end of healing, is when you finally reach a plateau of where you want to be with your healing, where you're finally functioning and everything is great. And then what ends up happening from there is, yeah, it's all coming together now. It really is all coming together. So what ends up happening is um, you basically reach this point where I was Anna 1.0, and Anna 1.0 had mental disorders and had problems, and I basically upgraded myself to Anna 2.0. But the problem is it's not really a problem, but this is what people find. When you heal, you reach your new version, your 2.0 version. But all the things in your life, all the people in your life, all the socializing in your life is still set to 1.0, but you're up here now. So you're not on the same frequency. You're just not on the same frequency. So this no longer applies to this new you. And what ends up happening is these people basically fall away. And then you find new people who are up here on your 2.0 style, on your 2.0 format. And I made that shift very, very obtusely yesterday and the day before, specifically yesterday. Like there was a lot that came together. I saw a couple posts on Facebook that really just jogged this into my memory, that really just altered my subconscious. So my subconscious was able to go, oh, that's logical. I'm going to go over here now. I had a totally different perception shift. It was absolutely wonderful. And when all of this came together, I realized that this ongoing 2-year long trauma of me having social anxiety around friends, about me feeling anxious about attending these events with friends, I found, and it was interesting because I thought it was jealousy issues with my VIP. And then I looked at him and I went, it doesn't make sense because I'm not a jealous type. And we had a lot of arguments where he said, you're acting jealous. And I'm like, it's not jealous. I can't explain it. And this whole thing I recently realized was not because I was mentally ill having social anxiety. It's because they were bad people and they weren't safe. So it was actually my subconscious sending off an alarm system into my brain telling me, hey, these are not good people for you. And my subconscious was throwing a tantrum, not me. My subconscious was throwing a tantrum. And when my partner looked at that and he would go, what are you doing? And I'm like, I don't understand. And so we both basically did the whole, it must be the trauma. And we gaslit me. And that's really where I want to step in. And now that I'm in this new society, now that I'm in a different social circle, now that I have better friends. I went through my Facebook. I deleted all of those horrible people. I basically did this massive change out. Like I changed out my wardrobe. It's like I lost 60 pounds and I just threw out all my old clothes and I just got a whole new clothes. And when I did that, I went, oh, that's so much better. Oh, it's not that there was something wrong with my body. It's that my clothes were the wrong fit. So that's the perception shift that I ended up with last night. And I do mean around 2 a.m. this morning is when the last piece of this all clicked together. But I really want to sit down and focus on the subtle difference. Is it subtle? I don't know. That's what I want to do here. I really want to look into the difference between the trauma and your alarm system going off and your subconscious actually trying to communicate to you, hey, this isn't okay. You're not safe here. And I'm trying to figure out, it took me 2 years. And then it took me getting a different group of friends. And one of the clues that really set me off was about 6 weeks to 2 months ago. One of my healthier friends invited me to an event, and I still felt the same anxiety. I still felt the same anger, all the emotions that were labeled as jealous from my VIP weren't jealous at all. It was anxiety. And I told him about it. I said, that's really interesting. It's all of this. I understand that now. And that was like, I think that was the first tip to really open this up for me to really explore. So now we're looking into it. And I really want to dig down into the emotional difference. And and I almost want to say, when I have an emotion that's based off of my cognitive core, we're going to be talking a lot about cognitive core in shifting perspectives. What ends up happening is basically the emotions come from here, and I can feel the activity right in my frontal cortex. I can feel it, but when it's in my gut, when it's in my right here, my diaphragm area, that's when I feel it, and that is actually intuition. And it's not until I started doing energy healing where I started studying the energy arts after. Like and this is where I'm at, and this is where it gets really interesting. Is I have 28 years of studying psychology, philosophy, and sociology. I have about 8 years of studying meditation, yoga, tai chi. I'm pulling in bioenergetics, physics, astronomy, astrology, and I am pulling out literally every energy art I can find and think of. Human design, I have Reiki in there as well. I have tapping. It's anything to do with the energy. It's the full energy arts. I don't specialize in any one particular. It's let's use all of them together as a whole. And there are two sides to a person's mental health. And society today is really good at showing you mental health from the perspective of psychology. We got that down, except it's sloppy, it's terrible, it's inefficient, it's not available to everybody, and it's horribly inadequate. So we have that option. And what I did with my research after almost 30 years is you get to that point where you have it down. I have an event and I can go boom, 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 take care of it, all done. And I recently suffered from one of the most catastrophic trauma events a person could undergo on May 10th. Here it is, May 23rd, and I'm more than functional. I talk to people, and when it comes out, they go, "No, oh my God, how can you be 13 days out of this kind of an event and you're fine?" And I'm like, that's how efficient I am at psychology. So, and this is really where red flags were going off, is when you are that good with psychology, when you're at that level and you feel it going off in your head, when you are that self-aware and knowledgeable, when things don't align up and the work that you do doesn't work, it's not a psychological problem. It's not a psychological problem. And that's where I maxed out everything with psych, and I was looking at it going, I don't understand. I shouldn't be having PTSD. I shouldn't be having this. Why am I having? And then I realized, based off of the last 2 days, off of the incident that was a catalyst from the event on the 10th of May. What ended up happening, and I don't think I can like sugarcoat this, I don't think I can censor it because I'm really going to lose a lot of meaning and add confusion. So I was raped on May 10th, and it took me 7 days of hardcore psychology to get my subconscious back together. So here it is, May 23rd. I'm talking about it. I'm able to laugh. I remember the first day I laughed after. It was 7 days. It was a big deal. I texted my VIP and I'm like, I laughed today. Big deal. Big deal. When you can finally laugh after an event like that. And it was, I braced for it. I went, okay, I know what's going on in the mind. Basically, whenever you're abused, you have your conscious mind, and you have your subconscious mind. And your subconscious mind is not black and white. It's not just one little piece in the back corner. It's 95% of you. 95% of you is your subconscious. CDC and NIM, that's quoted from CDC and NIM. That's not me. 95% of you is your subconscious. So the question really comes to is how tuned in is your subconscious? Where is your subconscious knowledge? Where's your health? And there's a lot of push from the psych field where it's going, these are the tools, these are the medications, and let's manage. They focus a lot on managing the mental health, managing the mental illness. I don't do that. I don't know. You don't manage your mental. I mean, yeah, you do, but that's not your focal point. Your focal point needs to be talking to your subconscious and pulling it back, getting your subconscious rescued from your abuser. So what happens in an abusive situation is the abuser literally hijacks your subconscious and turns your subconscious against you. Now you have internal conflict. And I know this. So while I was being raped, I was actually processing the psychology in my head. I was drugged, so I couldn't move. I could barely talk. I was passing in and out of consciousness. I was laying on the floor thinking things like, I can't move. This is happening to me. You know what's going to happen to your mind. You're being traumatized right now. And I said to him, it took me 30 minutes to say the phrase, I think I've been roofied. And while he kept having sex with me, said to me, no, it's just the edibles you had. And I did have edibles that night. Just all the more reason why he really should not have touched me. And he didn't stop to question nothing. Like, who says, I don't want to get into that. Moving on. So I'm in my mind and I'm going, okay, I can't walk. I can barely stay awake. I can't I can't speak. I can't move. And all of this is going on. And I immediately went to work. I went, okay, you know what this is going to do to your mind. You've been here before. You know what to do. So I heard him gaslight me and I identified it. I said, there, he just gaslit you. Why did he gaslight you? He gaslit you because he's a narcissist and he's abusing you because he's doing something wrong. And instead of listening to me and respecting that I'm having a problem with my perspective, he's taking advantage of my situation and he's having sex with my body. And it's really important, by the way, that you clarify sex with the body and not with me, because I was not part of that. So yeah, it's he was having sex with my body. And I was able to take all of that and start doing the mental work. I started right in the middle of it, doing the recovery and the healing while he was raping me. And it lasted for 3 or 4 hours, I think 3 hours. Um, yeah, it was at least 3 hours. I think it was a solid 3 hours. So for 3 hours, I just kept putting my mind through the mental work. And, okay, there's the gaslight, that's coming through. Okay, there's the abuse, that's happening. And I started piecing my subconscious together. I felt my subconscious object, going, I don't want this. I don't understand what's going on. You've been drugged. You need to contact your VIP. What's happening to you? It was very conflicting. It was very confusing. And I went, there's the confusion. Confusion is the emotion that happens when you are given conflicting beliefs because you are being raped and he is telling you that it's consensual. When I got done telling him, excuse you, I've been roofied, and he says, no, this is consensual. Don't gaslight me telling me that I consented when I'm not consenting. So I couldn't move. I couldn't physically get out of the situation. I don't even know if the door was locked or not. I was in a basement. I couldn't stand. And I had just thrown up. So I was beyond immobile and incapable of moving. So I'm laying there, I'm going through everything with my mind and I'm processing my mind through it. This is what's going to happen. Your subconscious is going to betray you. Your subconscious is going to side with him. And I could feel my subconscious already doing that. The confusion happened, and my subconscious is when I need a guide and you're not providing one. So I'm going to go over here with him. He seems to know what's happening. And this happens to every person's subconscious when they are abused. The subconscious says, the system's confused. I don't understand what's going on. You're not capable of giving me instruction right now. You don't seem to understand what's going on. So I'm going to defer to this person, the abuser who's gaslighting you. And I'm going to rely on them stepping in and helping me with this and taking care of it. So I'm going to give them the reins and make the decisions for me. And I went, okay, how do I reunite my subconscious? And it's dialectical behavioral therapy. I'm going to have to break down basically formal argument. I have to literally put my subconscious through formal argument and argue with my subconscious and convince my subconscious why it needs to come back over to my side. So around 5:30, I finally left the bar and I was still drugged. I still struggled walking. I got to the end of the block. I sat down on a bench and I sat on a bench for an hour. During that hour, I messaged my VIP, I messaged my BFF, and I messaged the girl who had brought me to the bar that night. And my VIP called me instantly and said, stay on the phone with me until you get home. And he did not want to leave my side. He was like right there. I then hung up the phone with him and I called a friend of mine who is also a psychologist and works in the ER trauma unit at one of the New York City hospitals. So I called him and had a discussion with him. But and he did the whole go get tested, file a report, get a rape kit done, go to the ER. And I'm like, last time I went to the ER, I needed to think. And my biggest problem really was my subconscious was not on my side. My subconscious was still going, what just happened? He said that you consented even though you were unconscious. And I'm sitting here telling my subconscious, hey, 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 you need to know what just happened. Well, we just had sex. No, no, subconscious. You need to hear, you need to accept what just happened. You can't reject this belief. You can't dismiss it. You can't throw it away because if you do that, that causes trauma. You have to accept it. So, subconscious, I had these conversations with myself. What just happened? He had sex with you. No, what just happened? Did you consent? Well, were you sober? Were you sober? Were you of sound mind? You had to have two men carry you. Think about it. I went through it, it was 7 days of just having these conversations with my subconscious. 7 solid days. This is all I did. I just laid home, cried, and talked to my subconscious. And it was working my subconscious through it. After a lot of conversation, I called up people. I'm like, so this just happened. You tell me. And it was amazing to watch. I had friends over here going, hands down, it's not negotiable. And I had friends over here going, well, you were intoxicated, but you did say yes and you were all over people. And I'm like, yeah, aphrodisiacs are part of roofies. And I'm going to say again, I had vomited. I was incapable of walking and needed two men to carry me downstairs. And I was passing in and out of consciousness. No one should have even been next to me, let alone, hey, let's go have sex. And like this is not negotiable. And it was amazing to see how many people gaslit me, how many people came after me, how many people abandoned, how many people guilted me to report it to the police. And in the meantime, my subconscious is siding with him. And I had to sit down and negotiate with him and talk to him about it. Like, no, you need to come on over here. I need you to unite with the fact that I was just too drugged to consent. Now, on a personal note, it's not something I do. I I am very protective over my boundaries, over my sexuality. There's a lot. I have a process. And in fact, I just like weeks ago announced, hey, I'm celibate and I'm a lesbian until I figure my shit out. So please give me space. And then this happened. And I'm just going, None of it made sense. And I can still feel the conflict. I can still feel the confusion. I can still feel the pain. But it's May 23rd and I'm very functional. And the reason why is because I was able to pull my subconscious over, and my subconscious keeps trying to pull back. And I'm like, no, you've got to stay united with the unit. You've got to know. And this is it right here. It's fortifying your identity. It's knowing something so strongly and so well that your subconscious doesn't leave you. It doesn't divide. It stays with you. That is a big part of it. So that all being said, setting that aside, for 2 years, I'm in this group of friends. I'm in this massive social circle of 300 people. And I had been backpacking through, it makes sense now that I have the perspective, it all makes sense now. I was backpacking through Manhattan for a year. No problems with social anxiety. I was going to events. I was having fun. I was all over the place. I was visiting people. I was having a blast for a year. There wasn't a drop of social anxiety inside of me for a year until my VIP said, I want you to meet my friends. And he invited me to these events. And then it was to a point where we were going to these events every week. And I was getting anxiety from going to these events, from being around these people. And I couldn't understand it. He was like, you're jealous. And I'm like, I'm not jealous. I don't know what it is. It must be my trauma. It must be my social anxiety. And we gaslit me. And I would do the mental work. I would pull it all together. I'd be fine. And then an event would come up and I would have severe anxiety. To this day, when an event comes up, I have severe anxiety. And I realized because of this rape, that the reason why my alarm systems were going off, because I had the anxiety, the reason why I had the anxiety was because I was feeling these really bad people around me and couldn't figure it out. It was because I was socializing with really horrible people. These people were, all of them, highly mentally ill. They all did drugs that range. I know of 2 people in the entire 300 that did not do drugs. 2 people who were embraced sobriety, alcohol and marijuana, weed, acid, all of it. They didn't touch anything. 2 people of 300. That's a clue. Like, that's it right there. That's it. So these people were heavy into drug use, from weed all the way up to heroin and meth. I had other people who, there was a lot, they push a lot of consent and free love, but there was a lot of non-consent happening. And because these people are mentally ill, everyone was turning a blind eye. It was very common for several of the men to just walk up, hug a woman, and slide his hand down her back. It's like, excuse you, we don't know each other like that, and you have not asked. I had repeated offenses from the guy who raped me. He had 4 times kissed me without consent, like full assaulting my mouth, 4 different occasions. And I kept going back. Isn't that interesting? And I kept saying, oh, no, I'm not jealous. And that's exactly the point. That is exactly the point. I had somebody who was assaulting me every time I met him. I had other men who were assaulting me on a regular. And the more they assaulted me, the more my alarms were going off. And I kept going, oh, it's just from past trauma. It's just from past trauma. And then I got raped. And then I got to see all the gaslighting and them excusing him and dismissing him. And I went, this was not trauma-based. This was not social anxiety. This was my subconscious, my gut intuition saying, these are bad people. And my VIP who vouched for them is what kept me going into the circle. And it was really, so I did the last 10 days I did the first 7 days of just get my head together. And then I have people going, well, why didn't you go to the police? Do you understand what it's like having your subconscious turn on you? I mean, we all have had it happen to us, but we don't talk about it. It's never discussed in a therapy session. But this is what happens when we are abused, is your subconscious turns on you and betrays you. And we don't know that that's what's happened. We just feel confused, divided, and split, and we hate ourselves. The part of ourselves that we hate is the conflict between our subconscious and our conscious mind having an argument. That's why we self hate, is because we're upset that our subconscious has betrayed us, but we don't talk about that. So, really, that's the purpose of shifting perspectives. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about all the parts of psychology that traditional therapy doesn't talk about. We're going to dig deep into these topics that are completely brushed under the rug. They learn about them in college, they learn about them in classrooms, and then they promptly dismiss them, push them under the rug, and say nothing. And in an actual room with a therapist, it's just tell me, talk to me. How do you feel about that? Which I'm all for. But what they're really trying to do is walk you through formal argument without having any training themselves on how to do formal argument. Studied philosophy for 28 years. I know how. So I'm looking at it going, it's quite interesting to see how much therapists try to apply this philosophical technique of formal argument with the intent to using dialectical behavioral therapy guide your subconscious through a logical process that the patient is completely oblivious to. This is not how you heal people. So I'm huge on let me show you what happens inside your mind when you're abused. That way, you know what you're really up against. You're not up against an abuser, you're up against yourself. So when you take yourself, when you love yourself, when you know yourself so well that you don't doubt yourself, that doesn't happen. Your subconscious doesn't. Instead, your subconscious goes, "What are you doing touching me in a case like this? How dare you think I am someone you should be touching right now? How dare you?" And that's really what I want to say. I need to say that. How dare you even think of having sexual interaction with my body in that state? How dare you? Oh, there's the anger stage. I've been waiting for this. This is good. This is the anger stage. So, all that being said, that event allowed me to really evaluate my friends, my situation, the social circles I was keeping, the events I was attending. And then it was this massive realization of I need to sever all ties and walk away. These are bad, garbage people. They are not good people. They are not healthy people. Yeah, they're broken. Yes, they are definitely very mentally ill and they're not dealing with their problems. They are wallowing in drugs. So I've separated myself from that group. I've put myself over into this group. And I have to clarify I used to be that. I very much used to be that. That society enabled my behavior. And that was a big part of it was it's an entire society that literally enabled the behavior of, hey, let's take you out of this situation, put you over here. And instead of dealing with your problem, let's avoid it through alcohol and drugs and parties and sex. And I got to a point where it took that kind of a rape to go, that's not okay for me anymore. So I stepped away from it. When I stepped away from it, all the anxiety, all the tension, all the panic attacks that I had at events vanished. It all just vanished overnight. And it was so powerful that I was able to step back from it and go, "Oh, this is it. This is it right here. This is very much. This isn't my trauma. This isn't jealousy. This was my subconscious trying to warn me that these are bad people." And because I didn't listen for 2 years, I got raped. So, I finally took a stand. I finally pushed everybody away. I finally unfriended a lot of people, blocked some people downright, and I have this new, beautiful, warm friendship, social circle all starting, and I'm nurturing it, and it's definitely feeling it's healthy. And a confirmation I got was 2 days ago. I went to an event, and there was no anxiety when I went to the event. There was no impending need or desire to cancel the event. And when I got to the event, there was this warmth that just welcomed me. And I got to see the difference between A and B. And this is extraordinary. This is really extraordinary. When I started my relationship with my partner, it was very much, this is back in 2021. When we started the relationship, I was very excited and passionate about the relationship. The attachment style kicked in. So I was dealing with the attachment style while I was also dealing with all of this. And I knew I was dealing with an attachment style. And then I got to work on that. And while I was working on that, while I was trying to balance everything, and this was all going off, warning me, stay away from these people, I was getting more and more closed off toward love. I was getting more and more closed off toward receiving people, so that when I met my partner, I was like this. And then I did this. And I was like this for a very long time. I was like this until literally the last 2 days. I've been discussing with my VIP, where do you want to go with this? Like, what's your plan? And I'm like, apparently I've got mental work to do. Apparently I have PTSD now. Apparently, well, now I have new triggers. Apparently I have, so I'm going to go away. I actually wrote him a letter at 2 a.m. this morning to say, I need to step away and I need to go take care of these. And I did. I stepped away from him. I went and I took care of them. And this is literally this morning, by the way. This is this morning. I sent him the email this morning at 2 a.m. to say, I need to take some time to go take care of my PTSD. So this morning, I stepped away and I had a massive perspective shift again, where I realized I went, okay, this is it. You're going to start the work and the exercise to open up to receive love and trust. And I was expecting severe resistance. I was bracing for severe panic. I was imagining myself going through the process, interacting with these people. And one of the things I noticed was I had I have 3 friendships, possibly romantic. I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure yet, but possibly romantic. But there's no anxiety. There's no fear. There's no fear. And I went, well, that's interesting. Why is there no fear? I should be panic. If this was a panic attack, if this was social anxiety, if this was trauma based, then where is it? It's gone. And the reason why it's gone isn't because I was mentally ill to begin with and having all these problems. It was my subconscious using my intuition to say, you are in a bad place with some very bad people, run away. And once I went through my social media and deleted all the toxic people who had followed me who were there, I was able to push all that away. And suddenly, all that I had left was really good, healthy, solid people. And I just went, oh. And I said something to my partner, which I've been saying for a long time. You can judge a lot, you can tell a lot by a person based on the company they keep. And I said that to him. The girl who led me to the bar, she was a friend of mine for about a year. I met her last summer. And I'm going to use the word friend here very loosely. She was very kind. She definitely stepped up at a time of need. She was phenomenal with that. But she had a friend that she kept with her, a roommate. And this was a man who felt, oh, if you're touching or kissing my friend, my roommate, then I have carte blanche to do what I want to your body. So I would be hugging my friend and kissing her, and then this man would come over and start touching me. And I'd be like, "Excuse you?" And every time, I mean, there were 3 different incidences where I was with this girl. I was with her and I was hugging her or kissing her or cuddling with her, and this man would just put himself on me, thinking, "Oh, well, if you're touching her, then I have passage." And they're just roommates. And I would talk to my VIP and say, "Something's wrong. I'm very concerned about the company she keeps." Because if she's choosing to have that, and then I called her up one day and I said, "Look, I need to talk to you about this guy." And she told me, she's like, "Look," she's like, "Oh, yeah, he does that." And I'm like, "How can you dismiss it?" Again, red flags going off, red flags going off. I call up my VIP. She's dismissing his behavior. How can she be okay with consent, with non-consent? like something's like, and she boasts how healed she is. She boasts about Anna, 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 Anna. The girl takes ketamine on a regular basis. Occam's razor. That girl is nowhere near healed. She's lying to herself. So I'm starting to see it. Perspective shifts. So I ignored this. I ignored the red flags. I kept excusing them. I kept making exceptions. And she made an arrangement for this surprise birthday party for my birthday on the 10th. And it would end with us going to this bar. We went to the bar, and none of my friends were there. It was her friends. It was, and I was handed a whiskey. I know the whiskey passed between bartender, guy A, who I don't know, who handed it to guy B, who handed it to me. So that whiskey passed three hands. Now, I did not see it go from bartender to guy A. I have no idea who guy A is. I just looked up and saw guy A, who's not the bartender, handing guy B the drink, who handed it to me. And I'm going, okay. And I ignored rule number one with me: you never, ever put a drink in your mouth where you did not see where it came from. And I chugged it instantly. Instantly. I felt like I was going to throw up and collapse. It took me 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes of me just holding the bar counter, trying to stabilize myself, swallowing down vomit. And then two men came over. They took me and they carried me downstairs. And I was so sick. I was so gone. And it struck the moment I put that in my mouth. And yeah, it was so incapacitating that within 30 minutes, I was all over everybody. It was like I had an aphrodisiac in me. I was coming on to men, and I don't do that. I don't do that. I had, and this was the other thing. It shut down my PTSD. It completely shut it down. That night, there were like 7 different things that took place that should have triggered me, but they didn't. That was a huge, like, something's going on. So the next morning, when I messaged this person, the person who set up this whole thing, and she gaslit me, she immediately went to defend, saying, well, these are my friends. They would never do that. These are my friends. And I'm looking at her going, I've seen what company you keep. And I needed to really listen to myself. I really needed to listen to my gut instinct. So judge a person based on what company they keep. What company was I keeping? So I deleted everybody. Everybody who gave me bad vibes, everybody who hurt me, everybody who disappointed me, everybody who just, a lot of really horrible people, really sick people. And the horrible people were taking advantage of the very sick people. That is the culture. That is the culture I was in. There was a lot of predators and a lot of mentally ill people. And the predators were taking advantage of these sick people. So I left the community. I pulled out of 3 different areas. And I just realized I have access to 2 people. And I need to sit down and be like, look, you have an event here. You've organized this thing, but you need to understand what you've really done is made a cesspool for predators to really prey on mentally ill people. That's what you have created. And ironically, once people reach a level of healing, they abandon the group because it is a cesspool for predators to take advantage of mentally ill people. And the mentally ill people are there desperate to look for comfort and look for purpose. But there's a lot of abusers in that community. And my intuition was going off left and right, picking up on all the predators. So I get away from that. And I'm going, why did my partner and I gaslight me for 2 years? And I'm going to be the first to tell you that I led the gaslighting on that. It was very much me going, oh, it must be my trauma. And it's because years and decades of my family saying, oh, she's just mentally ill. And so now when I have an intuition, I go, oh, it's just mentally ill. I am not mentally ill anymore. And when I have a problem with something, it's because there is a legitimate problem. I am not mentally ill anymore. I have a very high tuned running system that allows me to assess all of this. And the longer I keep gaslighting myself and dismissing real solid red flags and real solid gut intuition with, oh, you're just mentally ill, I am literally gaslighting my own subconscious and dividing my identity. I'm not trusting myself. And here's the thing is I have proven to myself time and time again that I am spot on. That I am spot on. And this is fortifying the identity. This is self-trust. When you trust yourself to make choices like this, no one can touch you. No one can touch you. Trust yourself. Trust your ability to form your own perspective because that's what we're talking about here. That's really how you fortify your identity. You have to trust yourself. You have to really know who you are under what circumstance, what you are under what. It's very powerful. It's the only cure and preventative measure you can take to avoid abuse. And I'm referring specifically to verbal abuse. Physical abuse is a whole nother, just run away. You have two things. You have the physical and you have the mental. And if you can, yeah, it's a long road. If there's physical or sexual abuse mixed in there, it's a whole nother creature. It's like the problem is quadrupled. So you really want to bring emphasis in on that mental. Start with the verbal abuse. If you can fortify yourself against the verbal abuse, you're a huge step up. But it requires absolute solid trust in yourself. I trust myself to know, oh, absolutely. I navigate my sexual body. I navigate what happens to my body. I don't let certain people touch me. I do not allow certain things to take place with my body. And I certainly do not allow one night stands. That is an absolute. I do not do casual sex. That hurts everything in my system. And because I know that about my ethics, because I know that about my system, I'm currently in a massive the way of the Buddha. I've completely eliminated alcohol. I've completely eliminated weed, drugs of all kind, and I'm a vegetarian. I'm not a Buddha. I'm not a Buddhist, but I am basically borrowing from that from the philosophy to fortify my mind and to use it. I cherry pick from all over the place. I went through all the religions and found all the pieces of every religion that went, oh, that's good, that's good, that's good. I'm going to take this. I'm going to take this. I'll have it. I'll have a side of yoga, and then I'll take that little bit of tai chi there, please. Thank you. And then I sat down with the energy arts and I went, meditation, fantastic. What else do we have here? We have Reiki. We'll go ahead with the Reiki cleanse and we'll do the astrology and the human design because those things are proving more and more to actually be in alignment with my system. This is phenomenal. Let's bring it all in. So then I take everything together. I pull all the pieces together. And I know me. I am so self-aware. And I trust that self-awareness. I trust the identity, the self, so that when other people come along and try and tell me what it is, when I come along and try and tell me what it is, I need to stop and go, but would I do that? Would I do that? And when you get into friendships and relationships, you are looking for people who align with you. And I have an idea of what a friend looks like. And my VIP has an idea of what he thinks. I don't know. I don't know. I cannot even begin to hypothesize that. I don't know. I don't understand. So I'm just going to put that over there. But for me, friendship looks like A, B, C, D, E. And in 2020, my two best friends, my husband, who had been my best friend since I was 12 years old, 28 years of friendship, and my then girlfriend, who I had literally been best friends with for 17 years, both of them dumped me. They were both narcissists. I basically opposed the narcissist, my husband. When I did that, he couldn't use me anymore. So he literally threw me away so he could find a woman who he could breed. And a month later, my girlfriend said, I agree with him and I don't agree with you. So I'm going to support him. And she also, I don't know if the narcissist ex-husband got to my girlfriend or if she just went down a different path. But I was devastated. And right after losing a husband and best friend of 28 years, I was in this place of pure devastation. So that the concept of friendship, I doubted my ability to make friends. I doubted my ability to assess people because I had chosen so poorly with these two people. And so I relied very heavily on my VIP to decide who my friend should be. He refused. He would not. He's like, you need to choose who your friends are. You need to go find your social groups. And I wouldn't because I was traumatized over the loss of my ex-husband and ex-best friend. And I adopted his clan. I thought they adopted me. And it was devastation after devastation. So I really want to dig deeper into why for 2 years I couldn't tell the difference between my intuition and it really and my trauma. And I think it's because at some point I did cure my trauma. At some point I did cure my trauma. And I need to accept that I don't have the mental illness anymore, which means if I don't feel good about something, it's because it's probably bad. So, yeah, definitely something to think about. So, I want to thank you very much for joining me. And this was originally going to be for my podcast, Shifting Perspectives. And I'm not sure if I'm going to leave it here because in hindsight, I kind of want to do an introduction video. And this was not at all an introduction video. So I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but this was recorded for Shifting Perspectives, and it might be pulled and put in a different playlist later under Anna Talks, which is my generic, random, unstructured, just throw it in there, and whatever I talk about is what I talk about. So I do these, I will be doing the podcast every about once a week. I will be doing one primary major topic. At least, yeah, at least once a week. I'm very whimsical with my impulses where I do what feels right. So if something comes up, I have a shift, I jump online and I talk about the perspective shift. And I show you how it went from point A to point B. So I think that's everything I have to say. No, there is one more thing. There's one more thing I want. This was a recording I took yesterday for a friend, and it was so good, I wanted to record it. You know, it's really funny that you said that. Yesterday, what was I doing yesterday? Oh yeah, I remember. I was doing your exercise. And I do something I call exploratory dialogues. When I am financially in the position I want to be in, I am totally going to I'm going to dump a lot of energy into my blog and my podcast. My podcast is called Shifting Perspectives. And today I'm building it up and I'm starting to do the graphics and I'm putting it together. And I realized that I don't need all this fancy equipment to do a podcast. I can use YouTube, which I use anyway. So I'm like, why am I not doing this now? Why am I waiting? So I have a podcast that I'm going to be launching probably tomorrow called Shifting Perspectives to help me gain momentum. And I'm looking for guest speakers. I'm looking to bring people in where we can just debate and discuss all the different aspects and avenues of psychology and healing and the energy arts and how it all comes together. I'm very excited. Anyway, but the other thing is my blog, which I refer to as Exploratory Dialogues. And the titles are so powerful. They really do a lot to consume or to envelop my point. They're just, I love them. They are my brain babies and I just love them so much. But that being said, it was right after you had given me the exercise for money and digging into the issue with money. So when you gave me the worksheets the worksheet. I sat down and I started to fill it out, but then I converted it over to exploratory dialogue, where I just journal in free form, and I begin a conversation between myself and my subconscious. And oh, I'm so excited to share this with you. It's one of my favorite little tactics that I have. When I had multiple personalities, it was really difficult to give each one of them their own stage, which is vital to healing, making sure that each voice was found. And an identity is made up of our ethics, our beliefs, our actions, and our voices. And those four things combined make our perspective. That, by the way, is what I call the cognitive core. I refer to it as the Rorschach print perspective. And it is the core to what I teach at the Healing Garden, to fortify the identity, to prevent abuse and or to minimize the damage done. That being said, everyone has this alignment inside of them. And my daughter has her own. We all have our own. You have yours. So that when you and I come together, it is a coming together of our cognitive core. Your ideas come into my ideas, and either they meld together or they don't. And if they don't, it creates cognitive dissonance. And it's easy when it's an acquaintance and you can kind of go your own way. But when it's a marriage where this is happening, if it's a child and this is happening, now you're going to see that dynamic really create cognitive dissonance. And once we see this a lot with teenagers and parents. Teenagers have their perspective, parents have their perspective. And I have so much to say about teenagers. I love teenagers. We all need to act a lot more like teenagers. They actually have it right. I love teenagers. I will be doing a whole thing just on teenagers. That might be my first, if this isn't my first podcast, that's going to be it, I think, is teenagers. Understand that this is where 100% of our emotions come from. You can really learn how to use your emotions to balance and to basically protect your identity. That all being said, when I had the multiples, all of them before my integration, every one of my alters had their own cognitive core. So I had literally 4 different people inside of my head, in addition to my core personality, all with their own opinions and perspectives and beliefs. And as I switched personalities, and this is really what it means when you switch personalities, is you're actually switching cognitive cores. You're switching cognitive beliefs. You are switching ethics in some cases. You are switching perspectives. It was astounding. One of my alters was mentally ill. The others were not. So when I switched from one personality to the other, I could actually feel inside of my head what it was like living without PTSD, living without borderline personality disorder. That fueled my ability to gain perspective in such a way that I could dissect mental illness like no one else could. It gave me the ability to, it gave me the power to really see its mental illness in a whole new light. My multiple personality disorder, combined with my knowledge in psychology, is what fueled my ability to perceive psychology in the way that I perceive it. That all being said, part of healing was requiring blogging, requiring me to sit down and give each one of my alters a chance to speak. So I would sit down and I would blog, I would journal. And all of this is on my website, by the way. Like, people can go through and actually watch these dialogues occurring between my alters, where I could type. I had my computer in my one pair of hands, but as the conversation unfolded, I got to write out, assuming the role of each of my alters while I was in the middle of my switching. This is when my multiple personalities were at their height, was at their height. I could write out and let each character, each alter, use my hands to communicate to the world what they saw. So there would get into arguments. Imagination and Colin would have a fight. Joanna would scream at Imagination. Imagination would step in and walk her through the process. Bergwin would comment like a peanut gallery in the background. And it allowed each one of my, no, it gave a stage to each one of my alters. And it allowed each one of my alters to have the attention and the limelight that they needed to heal. So I blogged like this using exploratory dialogue for a year, giving them all the power to sit down and say what they needed to say and heal and work through it. extraordinary healing. It was, I cannot begin to tell you. And like I said, it's all blocked, it's all recorded, it's on my websites. So you can see it all happening. And my point for saying all of this is last night when you gave me your workshop, or yesterday when you gave me the worksheet about money and how it ties into how I was able to figure out that it tied into my father, I sat down and I looked through the sheet that you gave me, and then I handed it over to Exploratory Dialogue. I turned it into a discussion between my conscious mind and my subconscious mind. So that my subconscious mind, which by the way is different than any of my alters, my subconscious mind was able to sit down, cry, break down, and argue their point about why money was so evil. And then my conscious mind was able to argue back very gently and soothe my subconscious mind. And then my subconscious mind was able to take over and lash out and get angry and scream. And this is what I do. It's literally shifting perspectives. It's the ability to feel both sides of an emotion at the same time and deliberately, on purpose, handing the microphone to each part of my subconscious as needed so that they can sit down and articulate what they need to say. And it's not about logic, it's not about rationale, it's about being heard, it's about being voiced. And by doing this is why, by the way, this is why I took my healing public, is because my subconscious needed to be heard. It's because all of my alters at one point, every one of them needed to be seen. And part of my trauma was that my primary alter, Joanna, was actually referred to incorrectly for 30 years with the wrong name. And that caused a whole other level of mental illness for her. In addition to that, the other three were always unknown. They were denied existence. They were forced to be hidden from everybody. They were called crazy. And by sitting down and blogging all this, by showing people and giving the microphone to each altar, it allowed them the limelight to be seen, to be heard, and to be validated. So that whether or not people read my blog, whether or not anyone comes along and inspects what I've done, they feel heard. Very, very powerful stuff. So, God, I cannot explain to you how much fun I had with this. Like, this is my favorite brain baby of everything I've created. So that all being said, I applied that method to the money exercise that you gave me, and that was how I was able to pull out what was inside of me to just articulate it and identify exactly how deep the issue goes, all the different variations of the issue, and what it all meant. So going on to the actual, that was all the pre lead up to actually what I wanted to say with this recording. So that was a recording I had that was, it was extraordinary. It really was. So I really, it was very, very fruitful to have that discovery yesterday. And I wanted to record it here. I am going to do an introductory video, and when I do, I'm going to play the full 12-minute video. That was only 9 minutes. So, but yeah, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here. And again, thank you so much. We can be found at www.annashealinggarden.org. I do consultation, one-on-one consultations. I do workshops, panel discussions, and I have my masterclass. If you have, all links are below. And if you have any questions, please let me know. I'm easily reachable on Facebook and all over the place. So thank you very much. And may the kindest of words always find you.